understand more of our need to trust in God. We sometimes get to thinking that I can read the Bible enough that I can understand or know what to do. If I read the Bible in the Spirit of God, I will understand what I can't do. The more you know about the Scriptures, the more you understand you need to rely upon God. Israel couldn't do it. I'm talking about Jacob being a stinker. Most of them back then was. Most of them today are. Most of us today are. We want to do things our own way. We want to take care of our own self. There's nothing wrong with, I start saying, because this is the way most of us that are here today was raised, to work and take care of yourself. And that's a good model. That's the way our parents raised us and everything. But we also need to understand that what we do amounts to nothing. We need to rely upon the Lord and trust in His ways. And this is, as Brother Donnie said, he looked at the lesson some, and looked at some of Jacob and everything. This 37th chapter, let's see, what verse is it? First verse. I looked at the rest of it, but I never did get past that. Chapter 37 in Genesis, verse 1. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. Before I go on and read the rest of this chapter, this phrasing is throughout the Bible of God's people. Abraham was a stranger and a pilgrim. Isaac was a stranger and a pilgrim. Jacob was a stranger and a pilgrim. Joseph was. Moses, the children of Israel. Christ was. And when you think of this word journeying in a strange land, that don't mean that he went to New York where he didn't know nobody. He was well known. All of these men were well known. They're very established people, respected people, but they thought different than the rest of the world when they was in the will of God. And so will we when we are in the will of God. I'll go ahead and read this chapter here, and we'll come back and look at some of these things. Genesis 37, we'll read verse 1 again. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bela, and with the sons of well, no, I didn't tear it out, they just stuck together. Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray thee, this dream which I dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaves arose and also stood upright, and behold, the sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaves. And his brethren said unto him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brother. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come and bow down ourselves to thee into the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the sayings. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brothers feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, Here am I. And he said unto him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring thee word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And a man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed thence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into the pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of his hands, and deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balms and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned into the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goat, and dipped the coat in the blood, and they set the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, This have we found. Know now whether it is thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Now there's a whole lot in this chapter, and someone else could probably bring out a whole lot more than I did. Because as I said, I could not get past this first verse. It is evidently what I need out of this chapter. Now, we know, and if you can picture this, of Joseph, a 17-year-old boy, and his brothers, which, as you remember the genealogy down through as they were born, he was quite a bit younger because Rachel didn't have any for a long time. He was the son of his father's old age, and we'll find later that his mom dies with Benjamin, but that's a different. But I know, and probably some of these younger kids here, Joseph was a 17-year-old boy, and most kids today, when they're 17-year-old, they think they're adults. Well, it wasn't so then. He was a boy until he was 30 years old then. But he did dream dreams, and he seen things that was happening. He was an obedient son. He was a spoiled son. He was his father. His father loved him more than all others, and you know what that brings about is jealousy. And they were jealous of him. And as he was with the sons of Bela and with the sons of Zilpah, and these, when you look back, this was Dan and Naphtali and Gad and Asher. And they were evidently slackers, wasn't doing their job, wasn't doing what they're supposed to. So Joseph goes and tells his dad on them. Now, and I not mean nothing to a lot of people, but it kind of does to me because we never did think much of the tattletale. But he was, as I said, he was the spoiled youngest kid, the youngest one. He was the baby. And Ava will tell you that the baby gets privileges that the others don't get. She tells me that all the time. Mom and Dad wasn't as hard on me as it was on them as it was on me. Got that backwards. It wasn't as hard on me as it was on them. Okay. But anyway, you can kind of get the picture here. And they just didn't like the boy. He was always causing them trouble and telling his dad on them and stuff. And then he dreams this dream. It says that they will all bow down to him. And then he dreams another dream that the whole family, his father and mother and everybody's going to bow down to him. And his brother, they got on to him and hated him even more for the first dream and second dream. And I noticed in this too that his dad rebuked him for telling his dream. But his dad considered the dream. Jacob by this time, or Israel, I believe had learned that God works in many ways. But all of this, rest of this chapter, the things that happened were things that happened to fulfill Joseph's dream. Because why? It was God's plan. Did God just plan this for Joseph? Back up a little bit in your memory. Do you remember when God talked to Abraham? Told Abraham that he was going to go down and be in captivity for 400 years and blah, 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 blah. The whole story and everything happened that way. This was just some more of the fulfilling of the promises that God made to Abraham. That is, Abraham followed God, and we will always find as we're going through here, and as in this first verse here of being the land that we're in, that his father was a stranger. And as I said, this does not in any way imaginary means they don't know him there. They knew him there. They knew him at all the wells. They knew his great flocks. They knew all about Abraham. They knew all about Isaac. And they probably knew all about Jacob and Esau, all the people in this land. As there's nothing new under the sun, as Solomon said. You can imagine the people around about it, those sons of Isaac, they're one's going to kill the other, and one deceived the other. And I'm sure that these things were abroad. They went in, and as we found Israel, as he tried to intermix with the places he went, and it didn't work. His daughters went out to the daughters of them, and they ended up in a mess. This is the part that makes God's people strangers in the world, is that they follow God. When you or I do not follow God, we're not strangers in the world. We're part of the world. You can tell no difference in us. We talk the same, we look the same, we act the same, we take revenge the same, we look out for ourselves the same, we do everything. And as I speak of strangers and being different here, I challenge you, will not do it this morning. Go read the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5 through 7. And it will be so contrary to the way I think most of the time. But if I'm going to be a stranger in this world, I need to have the spirit and the attitude that was there. As Christ walked, and he was a stranger in this world because he was rejected of his own, and of the world. But as Christ walked, he went about and he preached the word that God sent him. He set forth the message that God sent him to. And it wasn't just in what he said, because he spoke with power. In other words, he did what he said. He spoke the way he said, and he had his attitude. He didn't, with the Pharisees, the scribes and the Pharisees, he rebuked them all the time. Did he go run on down and rebuke them? No, they followed him around. He was a stranger, but they knew him. They knew what he stood for and everything. And they were mad because that he ate and drank with the publicans and the sinners. Now, consider this too. When Christ ate and drank with the publicans and the sinners, do you think that he sat there and talked about the Roman games and, oh, it's a nice day today? He delivered the message that they got, and he was good to them. He even fed them. He told them one time, you don't come to me for the miracles. In other words, for this message of God, you don't come to me, but you come to get your belly filled. And people still be the same way today. But Christ was very forgiving. He taught us to forgive. He taught us, as I said, read the Sermon on the Mount. And if I can turn the other cheek, if I can pray for those that despitefully use me, if I can bless them that curse me, if somebody borrows something from me, I don't expect anything in return. Well, that's foolishness. It is if you're not a stranger. But if you're a stranger in this world, it makes perfect sense. Because this is the way that God did, and this is the way as we've been going through this. The wells that they had, which was their life source. Water is the most important thing to a people, especially in a desert area, in a wilderness area and everything. And we found many times here that they would go dig a well, and the others in that nation or in that area, the tribes, they would come and they'd say, "This is mine." Did they start a war over it? No, they went and dug another well. Well, you can't just do that. People take advantage of it. If I do it on my own strength, they will. If I believe that Christ said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Not that I'll have riches and stuff, but he will take care of me. This is the stranger and the pilgrim, as in Hebrews 11, it described Moses as, Abraham as that. In 17th of Genesis and 28th chapter of Genesis, we find that Abraham was a stranger in the land, and he in the land wherein he would possess. How many people in here believe there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth? How many believe that God's people is going to inherit it? God will take care of us. And if you don't see anything else in the examples here, you can look back at all these examples, as Jacob, the most recent one. When God turned all these things, the spotted and the colored and all that and everything, and he ended up with more and everything, it worked when he did what God told him to do. When he didn't, it didn't work. He got took advantage of because he was relying upon his scheming thoughts. God told him, I'll bring you back into this land, that you will be president, I'll bless you in it, and I'll give you the heritage of your fathers. And they told him all these. You remember when Jacob's ladder? But even after all that he went through, when he came back to meet Esau, he quoted what God had told him, and then he made provisions because he just knew Esau was not only going to kill him, but his whole family. Just in case God don't do what he said, I'm going to make provisions where he can't wipe me completely out. Do we not do that? Do we not say, we always, the verse that Donnie read, all things work good to them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose? Boy, we stand on that. But do we just stand on it in word or in deed? Because we will worry, we will make provisions for ourselves, we will figure out ways to get ourselves out of things that I have got myself into, when all I need to do is rely upon God. Is God unfaithful? Or has he promised that he would take care of us? But, as Donnie will remember, and Jared, Fern used to make a statement she was going to help God. Does God need my help? No. And most of the time it was to get even with somebody else. She was going to help God get even. God don't need our help to get even. He don't need our help to take care of us. He needs us to do what he tells us to do. He tells us to labor as we are laboring unto him. We're not to sit out and wait for God to give manna from heaven to us. He tells us that we are to serve our masters, we're to be faithful, we're to be good workers, so that we can please everybody around us. No. We are to do it as doing it unto the Lord. And when I'm doing it for me or somebody else, I may look good to the rest of the world, but I'm not going to look good to God, because he wants us to rely upon him. He wants to take care of us. Just as we as parents, especially when our kids were little, we wanted to take care of them. And the little rascals that run off here and get hurt and go here and get hurt, well, we're the same way. As I was talking about Joseph being 17 years old, and today he'd think he was a man. Teenagers ain't the only ones got that problem. I'll soon be 70 years old, and I think I've got things figured out pretty good, but I don't. I still need to rely upon God. And I need to trust in Him, and I need to do what He would have me to do, to have the Spirit of Christ. Christ in your hope of glory. Donnie read it to us in Romans there, that if we don't have that Spirit, whose are we? I don't know whose you are, but you ain't Christ, because He said, if we don't have that Spirit, you're none of mine.
You know, we can come bring it down to the present time in our own lives. We've all took mates, we've all raised a family, and our families do, our kids do what they want to do. They're not worried about it. I mean, it's a sad situation, and I shed tears once in a while when what all my kids have done.
Amen.
But there and all again, I'm kind of like A.Z. Dovers. There's something I didn't teach them down through the ways. And you look at all the things that God has put out there. We see the same thing here in all these 12 apostles. They did the same thing. They went over and took wives of the Canaanites. They didn't stay within themselves. And you look at each individual family. What did we do wrong, you know? And we look at our own lives. What did I do wrong? And that's what I get mostly out of this, whatever. They turned their back upon Joseph and took his coat that his dad made him of many different pieces of material, I think. And they did everything they could to destroy the boy. And we can find later that God chose him to be instrumental for it.
They were just like the ones that crucified Christ. They were fulfilling God's plan.
Well,
Yeah.
they thought they were. I don't even know whether they thought they were or not. They were fulfilling their goodwill.
They was just wanting to get, they hated him, wanting to get rid of him. And here's that old love of money pops up in here even. They was gonna kill him. And Reuben, of all of them that didn't want to kill him, Reuben was trying to save him.
Wanted to sell it
Yeah.
for personal gain.
Yeah. Why do we want to kill him when there ain't no profit in killing him? We can sell him. But of all of them, you remember Reuben? Reuben had already lost his inheritance. He lay with his father's wife. He'd been cut off. But he still seemingly had a little bit more gumption than the rest of them, but as Bill said, he was probably just looking out to make a little money. But we do need to understand this one thing, and as Bill said, when we look at our kids and shed tears over our kids, personally, myself, I think I taught my kids too much of how I thought things should be. And I hopefully, what I should have been doing, and hopefully I did some, is teach them to serve the Lord and to rely upon the Lord. They might not do things the way that I would do them. That's not important. What's important is if they do what the Lord wants them to do, if they rely upon the Lord. And sometimes I don't know if we don't stress that enough in our raising of our kids, or what it is as Bill said, shed a lot of tears and lose a lot of sleep sometimes, which that also is something that I need to turn over to the Lord and let Him give me some peace in too.
I accept too much, I think, because my kids did, I accept it.
Yeah.
And that ain't, down through the years, I've heard different things taught, different things expounded upon, and 3 or 4 years later, they was teaching right the opposite of what they taught before. I don't see God's word the same way that some people do, I would guess.
We know that it don't change. when we change, we was wrong one time we did. You know that, because God's word will change. Anything else anyone has?
You know, it's a sad situation is that when we, as parents are raising our children, we'll learn as we go. It'd be nice if we could know that what we know later in the beginning. I'm sure we'd be kind of different, I know I would. I was thinking here of how they treated Joseph, and thought of the verse farther on, when Joseph makes himself known to his brother. Now, a lot of years has passed in this time period, in chapter 45. And this is where the brothers come, and at this time he's telling who he is. He says in verse 4, Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, I pray you." And they came near. And he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, or anger with yourselves, that you sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you in posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by great deliverance. Now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt." Now, Joseph knew this at this time, but he didn't know. I mean, we read it now and see the end from the beginning, but when he was sold into Egypt and he was in that pit, he didn't know. Whenever he went and but he was trusting in the Lord when he was sold to Potiphar, and the Lord blessed him through that situation. Then he was accused of rape by the master's wife and thrown into prison. And no doubt, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, we can't imagine being in prison like that. The prison we have today are cakewalk compared to what they had then. But even just think of being in that situation and thinking, what am I doing here? What's all this going on for? He didn't know. And then God blessed him in the prison. It's amazing. God blessed him, but I'm confident because he was trusting in the Lord in his troubles. He had no one else to turn to. There was no one there but God. But in the end, he saw back over it and seeing what God had done through that, through many years. But he didn't know at the time. We don't know today. We don't know what our future holds. We don't, if we trust in the Lord, we don't know where God's going to take us, what God's going to use us for. We don't have any idea. We may look back in the past and we can see how God used us in something and blessed us in things, but we don't know how much longer we're on this earth, we don't know what it's going to entail. But if we trust in the Lord, we can know He's going to take care of us. We surely ought to know it when we're our age and have seen things in our life. Not only see all the things the Scriptures tell us, but we've seen many times in our own lives where the Lord has taken care of us through situations we didn't know how we was going to get out of it or what the point was. But when we don't know now, we might live another hour, we might live another 20 years, we don't know. But we know God's there.
And just because all things work to our good, don't mean we're always going to see that good right then. Anything else you want to ask? If not, Lord willing, we'll continue in 38.